Are we ready to hear about some cats?
I'm gonna have to say
Okay, before I get started, I have a little treat for you. A lot of the stuff from this panel is from this book, Gaigo, Supernatural Cats of Japan by Zach Davison. I have 2 copies of this book because I forgot to take it off my Amazon wish list. At the end, anyone who is interested in maybe winning this book can come up, write their name down, and I'll do a random number generator and someone will win the second copy. So, content warning, I am going to mention animal death, specifically cat death in this. It happens in folklore. I am not going to go into detail because that will upset me just as much as any of you. There is general mention of sex work, again, no details. Brief mentions of human corpses being eaten, and just cats, specifically my handsome son, doing weird, gross cat things. So let's start. Why are cats associated with the supernatural?
Oh, here's the stretch.
Cats be weird, yo. In my opinion, every cat is a yokai. So a little potted history of cats in Japan. The domestic house cat, Felis domesticus, is not native to Japan. It's not entirely clear when they arrived. It's commonly thought that they were introduced from China in around the 800s of the Common Era, but there have been cat bones discovered from the 3rd century of the Common Era. Probably, cats being cats, they snuck over on ships, but before the 800s, not enough of them snuck over to kind of create a breeding population and stay around. There are possible descriptions which exist from the introduction of Buddhism, which is around 552 of the Common Era, as well as importing Buddhism. They apparently imported cats. The first definite description of a domestic cat comes from Emperor Uda, who... I will read you the description. On the 6th day of the 2nd month of the 1st year of the Kampo era, taking a moment of my free time, I wish to express my joy of the cat. It arrived by boat as a gift to the late emperor received from the hands of Minamoto no Kowashi. The colour of the fur is peerless. None could find the words to describe it, although one said it was reminiscent of the deepest ink. It has an air about it, similar to Kanu. Its length is 5 sun, and its height is 6 sun. I fixed a bow about its neck, but it did not remain for long. In rebellion, it narrows its eyes and extends its needles. It shows its back. When it lies down, it curls in a circle like a coin. You cannot see its feet. It's as if it were a circular bidisc. When it stands, its cry expresses profound loneliness, like a black dragon floating above the clouds. By nature, it likes to stalk birds. It lowers its head and works its tail. It can extend its spine to raise its height by at least 2 sun. Its colour allows it to disappear at night. I am convinced it is superior to all other cats. Yeah, and anyone who's had a cat, your cat is better than all other cats, right? Yeah. So cats became really popular. They were mostly kept in palaces as like really pampered pets. The first recorded name of a cat is brilliant. Sorry, I didn't write a script for this one because it was all a little bit late, last minute. So I am going to have to keep referring to this. The first recorded name of a Japanese cat was Myobo no Otodo, which means Chief Lady in Waiting of the Inner Palace. So yeah, it wasn't unusual to award royal station to cats at the time, and when they died, like, you would throw them a lavish funeral. These cats were really, like, important. They were status symbols. Having a cat meant you were hot shit. However, in 1602, there was a bit of a problem. Rats were, like, there was an absolute flood of rats, and it was a real problem because they were destroying the silk trade. They were eating all of the silk, because silk is natural protein, and rats were like, it's better than nothing. So they were eating all of the silk, and the imperial councillor said, we need to these cats need to earn their keep now. They can't just be pampered pets. So it became illegal to buy or sell a cat, or kind of like formally own one anymore. They were all set free to deal with the rat problem.
That explains a lot.
Cats are kind of seen a bit weirdly in Buddhism. So, for one thing, they were really important to have around because they ate the rats that were eating the scrolls, because the scrolls are printed on vellum, which again is an animal product. Cats are perceived as quite holy by Buddhists, or by some Buddhists, because they're seen as being very mindful creatures. They live in the moment. But they are one of only 2 creatures that did not weep when the Buddha died, the other being venomous snakes, and as a result, they cannot enter Buddhist heaven. As you will find out later on in this panel, they were feared as demons, but also some of them were enshrined as gods. So one of the most significant aspects of feline yokai, or kaibyo, which is like the proper name, proper collective noun, they are henge. Henge are shapeshifters. Other henge are the kitsune and the tanuki, which are, if you've been to my other panels, you'll know they're pretty big deals in the yokai world. Generally, creatures with henge powers are not born with them. They achieve them later on in life, so they reach a certain age and they get more powerful, or they transform. The exception to this is the tanuki, which is generally just magical from the get-go. Once they do achieve these powers, normally they are long-lived or immortal in terms of they will not die from old age. They can be killed, but they won't die from just natural causes. Okay, this has decided it's gonna do. There we go. I don't remember doing that. The bakaneko is kind of like your basic cat yokai. The kanji literally translates to changing cat. Obake is like a general term for yokai in general. They're like all changers. They are shapeshifters. Mostly what they shift into is humans. They've got that in common with the kitsune. Tanuki are kind of more inclined to transform into objects and things like that, but kitsune and bakaneko, nekomasa, they're like, they want to trick humans. There are stories of humans who can transform into cats, which are also classified as bakaneko, but those stories are an awful lot rarer. The bakaneko usually stays on all fours and only has one tail. The exception to staying on fours is when it's time to put a towel on their heads and have a boogie. They can be anything from the size of just a large cat to like super immense. We're talking like 6 foot tall at least, able to carry a dog in their mouths. That's how big we're talking. There is theories that there were tigers or lions that had kind of been imported into Japan and like released or escaped, and that was what people were talking about when they were talking about the bakaneko, because it was usually in the mountains that these would appear. One of the most famous bakaneko stories is the vampire cat of Nabeshima. Give me a moment. So this is a kabuki play. It's a kabuki play that is based on an actual rebellion that happened. And for some reason, when they turned it into a kabuki play, they were like, we don't want it to just be about a succession battle, we want there to be a giant evil cat in it. The story goes that there was a chap who was the lord of a province, and he used to play Go. And he employed a guy to be his Go opponent. It's not clear why he got upset with this man he employed to be his Go opponent, but he did, and Nabeshima had him put to death. The chap's mother was really upset by this. She took her own life. The family cat, was like, nom nom nom. There's some blood here, blood be tasty, licked it up. And when it did this, it transformed into a Bakaneko. And this Bakaneko decided it was going to take vengeance. So it took the shape of the chap's mother and went to the palace and accused the guy of murder, and just tormented him for an awful long time, until the Lord's retainer challenged the cat to a battle, won, slayed the cat, saved the Nabeshima house. As I said, this was transformed into a kabuki play, which was a bit scandalous, because it was not very subtle in being about this real life person's household, and it did actually get banned for a while, but after a time people were like, no, we want the vampire cat play, please put it back on. So I said they transform. What? What do they have to be to be able to transform? Well, they've got to be over 3.5 kilos. Every cat I have owned has been over 3.5 kilos. They've got to have a long tail, because otherwise there's not enough of it to split if they might turn into a Nekomata. And they've got to be able to live a long time already, like long time for a cat, so they've got to reach the age of 13. If they don't want to go through all of this faff, they do, like in the Vampire Cat of Nabeshima, they drink the blood of a murder victim, which is a lot easier, but it does mean that they have to go and wreak vengeance. So the Nekomata it's a little bit complicated as to what's a Bakaneko and what's a Nekomata. Folklore shifts, it mutates, it takes on aspects of other bits of folklore. So broadly, they are the same, but there's kind of little bits and pieces that are different. The kanji, so the first set of kanji there, that translates to forked cat, which makes sense. The tail's got a fork in it, turns into two tails. The second kanji there, which it's actually the one that gets used more often, that translates to, again, cat. And no one's really quite sure why that is. It might just be a homophone, which means something that sounds the same as another word. It might be because it's got a tail and then a tail again. It might be because it kind of comes back from the dead, so it's like a revenant. These are also shapeshifters and necromancers. Bakaneko also, like, for some reason, they have power over the dead, especially corpses, like they're really associated with corpses. Same, as I said, same kind of transformation criteria as Bakaneko, like be 3.5 kilos or more, long tail, live a long time. The first mention of the Nekomata is during the Kamakura period. It is from 1233. These are kind of just described as man-eating mountain predators. So again, we're like, are they talking about lions or something like that, or wild cats? There's no mention of the split tail in this first initial mention. They're just like really big cats that attack, like they're horrible predators. They attack men, they attack wildlife. They're initially described as about dog-sized. After those first mentions, they are always described as having the forked or double tail. They're the ones that tend to hang around, like walk around on their two back legs rather than on all fours. So what's the significance of the tail? As I said, like Bakaneko one tail, Nekomata two tail. Why? But tails in Japanese folklore like just have an association with supernatural power. So the kitsune, like, it's said that the more tails they get, the more powerful they are, although there's kind of controversy over whether that's true or not. The tanuki, like, the thing that it has trouble transforming is its tail. In Japan, like, if you've ever been to Japan and you've seen stray cats, or even a lot of pet cats, or even the cats in cat cafes, a lot of them have like very short or like little nubs or even no tail at all, and that's a genetic mutation that's kind of unique to Japanese cats, to the extent that the Japanese bobcat breed, like formal breed, is now been inducted into the General Council for the Cat Fancy. So it is like, it's a breed that you can show or, you know, buy from breeders, and that has like just a little nub of a tail. In history, though, you would actually think about cutting off your cat's tail in order to prevent it from becoming a bakaneko or a nekomata. If it didn't have the tail, it would be unable to transform. Excuse me. Towels. White towel on head. Not entirely clear. So specifically, these towels are the tenugui towels. They're like hand towels, kind of. They're sort of multi-purpose, but they're the ones that you carry around in your pocket. So when you wash your hands, you use it to dry them, or just dry things off a bit. There is a thing about putting an item on your head, conferring those shape-shifting abilities to you. So with the tanuki, it's supposed to be like a leaf. You put a leaf on your head, that means you can transform. Like, it's not directly said that this is why these cat yokai can transform, but like there's kind of an association with it, and you're like, okay, maybe that's why. There is a legend of a soy sauce seller who noticed that his tenugui were all going missing, and he was like, where are they going? And then he saw the local cats kind of going into his warehouse, and he sneaked up and he looked in, and they were all dancing around with the towels on their heads. So that's where like the story itself came from. Now I was talking to someone about, you know, cats don't normally like things on their heads, but I was thinking about it, and they don't like things on their heads, but they do like kind of diving under fabric, right? So maybe he saw that, or maybe people saw that and were like, oh, the cat's trying to get the towel on its head. Maybe they just get sweaty with all the dancing. I tried transforming my cat. Didn't work. So, Gotoku Neko is a bit of a funny one. Literally translates to trivet cat. So trivet is the thing that's wearing on its head there with like the three prongs. So it's something that it would normally be the other way around. You put hot things on it so that they don't burn the surface underneath. This guy was made up by our buddy Toriyama Sekien, because Toriyama Sekien liked making up yokai. The pun, because Toriyama Sekien also loved pun, so he said that this was a really forgetful kaibyo. It relates to a legend of a nobleman who was performing a dance, and it was the dance of the 7 virtues, only he forgot some of the dance, so he was like, this is the dance of the 5 virtues, and that's what the go from the Gotoku is referring to. Gotoku Neku, he's a pretty chill guy. Like, he doesn't want to eat you or murder you or anything like that. All he wants to do is blow on the embers in your hearth to start the fire up again, because he likes it warm. he's a cat. Even though he's got a trivet on his head, which in other folklore in Japan is associated with what you need to do if you want to cast a horrible curse on somebody. However, there is a little bit of a problem with him starting these fires because he's using up all of your wood and your coals and stuff like that. So I noted that he's obviously not from Yorkshire. And I can say that because I do have Yorkshire heritage. Now we have the Kasha. These two pictures are of Kasha, who is the cat that belongs to Nez, Minamicon's events runner. Kasha is weird. If you've been paying attention to the kanji, you will notice that the kanji in the Kasha do not feature the kanji for cat at all. That's because it actually reads burning chariot. Originally, the Kasha was a cart. It was a cart that was on fire. It would come and collect the sinners when they died, usually when they were executed specifically, and it would cart them off to Jikoku, which is the Buddhist kind of equivalent of hell. Somehow, this turned from a flaming cart into a flaming cat. And it's probably Toriyama Sekien's fault. Because for some reason he was like, I don't want to draw a cart, I like cats. There are a couple of ways to kind of bamboozle the Kasha and stop it from stealing the soul of the sinner. You can hold 2 funerals, and in the second one, which is the one that kind of the Kasha is going to pay attention to, you put a stone in the coffin instead, so it comes and carts off the stone. So, also with cats and corpses, why are all of these cats necromancers? Japan's not alone in associating cats with corpses. Jewish folklore says that when you are holding your shiva, which is the wake when the person has died, you stay in the room with them all night. You must not allow a cat in there. I think British folklore says you cannot allow a cat to jump over a corpse or the corpse will reanimate. Bakaneko, Nekomata and Kasha are all said to be able to reanimate the dead and control them, have them do their bidding. This might be because of what happens when cats are around human corpses and don't have any other food sources. Do I need to go into any more detail with that? Yeah. Here's my cat trying to decide if I'm dead or not.
Are you food or a feeder?
Yeah. There's also an awful lot of cats with Kaibyo and fire connection. Now, you would think cats and fire, like, fire burn, fire hurt, fire not good. But cats do really like warmth, right? So there is a story, kind of stories about cats accidentally spreading fire throughout a home because they've been sleeping too close to the fire, spark has come out, it's lit their fur on fire, and they've panicked, been running around, and the fire has spread from their body to the rest of the house. It might also be to do with lamp oil. So in old Japan, candles weren't really a thing. They didn't have access to the materials needed for candles. So they would use oil lamps. And one of the best oils to use in your oil lamp, because it didn't smoke very much, was oil from fish. Obviously, cats like fish. And also, there wasn't a lot, like, animal protein in the terms of meat and fish. There wasn't an awful lot of it to go around. Japan's not got great kind of resources for food production in general during this period. So people didn't eat a lot of that, and they certainly weren't going to feed it to their cats when they could barely get enough for themselves. So the cats were not getting the animal nutrition that they needed, and they may have resorted to just licking up the oil from the lamps. It is thought that this kind of is connected to the origin of kaibyo myths in general, because if you saw like the silhouette of a cat standing above a lamp on its hind legs, like, you know, reaching up to get it, licking it. It's in silhouette. The lamp is making it flickers. The cat looks like it's moving. Maybe like the tail shadow looks like there's two of them. That kind of thing. That's gonna look kind of creepy, right? Must be a yokai. Cats are also frequently associated with women, and I've kind of put this as being the progress into cat girls, what we have today. So cat witches are a thing. They're a variation of the Yamamba or the Yamauba, which is a mountain witch. Mountain witches are pretty bad news. They're pretty keen on cannibalism. They want to lure you into their house and eat you. They're quite common in, like, there's quite a few of them in popular kabuki plays, and as a result, kabuki was a very popular subject for ukiyo-e prints. Cat witches can normally be kind of figured out because they'll be in human form. I mean, I know this picture shows like with cat ears and such, but that's a kabuki actor in their cat form. They'll normally appear in human form just as an old lady, but you can figure them out if you see their shadow or their silhouette, because that will be of the cat form. As I mentioned, ukiyo-e prints did often feature these kabuki players, and thereby the cat witches. Ukiyo-e prints were very, very popular in the Edo area because they were they were an accessible art form in a way that didn't exist prior to that. So like people who, it wasn't just the upper classes that could own art anymore. So there was an absolute explosion in ukiyo prints in the Edo period as they created the technology to make them. But they were sort of seen as a bit lowbrow. Like, we look at it now and we're like, oh yeah, classic Japanese artwork. At the time they were more like, I don't know, like magazines kind of thing. They as a result, they would depict kind of lower brow activity a lot of the time. So kabuki theatre, geisha, like the equivalent of celebrities of the time. Mizuko Tadakuni thought that this was all a bit, you know, we don't want to promote this kind of stuff, it's all far too lowbrow. So he banned depictions of humans performing things like kabuki theatre, banned depictions of geisha and pleasure-like quarters. What he didn't do was ban animal pictures. So what the artists did were like, well, we can't draw human kabuki actors, but we can draw them as cats. There was also Utagawa Kuniyoshi, who is one of like the premier, most well-known ukiyo-e artists. He just really liked cats. He really liked cats. He drew, like, that's just one of the, like, that's the one with the most cats in it, but he drew a whole load of cat pictures. And people bought them because people like pictures of cats. Cats are also associated with geisha and with sex workers. Now, those are not the same thing, but there is a level of crossover during this period. It was thought that a lot of bakaneko, for some reason, chose to shapeshift into sex workers. Now, these were usually revealed if she had a secret snack. And it is thought that what was happening here was geisha and, you know, these companions, these escorts, couldn't eat when they were around the men, like, because eating was, you know, not seen as a very seemly activity. It ruined the illusion, you know, it's too human a thing to do. So they would have to kind of like sneak into a back room and just scarf down some food. And if they got peeked on when they were doing this, people would be like, that's a bit weird, must be a yokai. There are some pictures where they're like, oh, she's not eating fish, actually it's a human arm she's eating, but I don't think any of them are actually eating human arms. There's also, obviously, geisha, one of the instruments that's very heavily associated with them is the shamisen. And the shamisen is, even still today, made from cat skin. They've tried using other materials. The claim is it just doesn't give the same sound. So, there are pictures kind of like this where you're like, is this cat mourning the loss of, a friend of hers that is part of the shamisen that she is playing? Unlike kind of the Nekomata, who was like, back in Neko and Nekomata generally were like, they're a bit scary, they want to, eat us, they want to harm us. Back in Neko ladies, like, it was thought, if you consorted with a lady who was thought to be a Bakaneko, like, that was, again, you were hot shit, So not much has changed. Cool. Right, so we have the Neko Musume, which translates to cat daughter. This originates from mise monoshos. So mise monoshos were a little bit like carnival sideshows, and regrettably, one of the kind of aspects of this was what we try to avoid now calling a freak show. It would feature people who are unusual in some way, whether that be like congenital defects or, they could do really weird things. There is one in, I haven't written it there, but it's on a later slide. There is a mention of a cat woman who is supposed to have the features of both human and cat. It doesn't go into detail exactly how this is, so we can't kind of picture what it was that she looked like, whether this was faked or if it was some kind of congenital defect. But yeah, so this became associated as the cat daughter. The Ihon Soyoshigure collection features a story of a licking girl who has a tongue that is as rough as a cat's. She just kind of, it's not very specific, she just kind of goes around licking stuff that's just in a bit of a weird way. There is also a Buddhist morality tale of a shamisen maker's daughter. As I mentioned, shamisen are made of cat skin. Japan folklore loves a vengeance tale. So the idea was that the spirits of all of the cats wanted to punish this shamisen maker, so his wife gave birth to a daughter who was both human and cat, had the features of a cat. And this was supposed to discourage you from taking the lives, as in Buddhism you're not supposed to take the lives of other creatures if you can avoid it. The Nekomusume became very popular in kamishibai performances. Kamishibai is a form of kind of it's like shadow theatre. So painted backdrops and shapes would be moved around in front of them. Nekomusume was a really popular subject of this. This got, again, censored in 1937. For some reason, the government was like, no, we don't like this. It's too, whether it was too sexy or it was just a bit too weird or people were just getting too into it. They're like, no. That did get repealed again later on. Maneki Neko, I'm sure all of you have seen one of these. You may think it is called a lucky cat. It is not. The kanji translates to inviting or beckoning cat. The cat is not waving at you, even though it looks like it, it is beckoning you in. These are really popular throughout Asia, and I actually thought, oh, this is probably another Chinese import. Actually, it's the other way around. The legend begins in Japan and was exported out to China. They're obviously very popular in a lot of Asian countries. There's quite a few origin stories claimed for the Maneki Neko. One of them is, there was a lady who was having what's the word I want? She was having a nice time with her samurai pal. And suddenly her cat flew at him. And he was like, oh heck no. And he was a samurai, so he drew his sword, cut the cat's head off. However, the cat's head kept flying in the direction that it was jumping and landed upon a venomous snake. So the cat had actually been trying to save them both from the snake. And the samurai felt so bad about this that he enshrined the cat And this was said to be the first Maneki Neko, and they created effigies in its honor. The more common story is of someone who is, so there's one of an old lady who's really, really poor and destitute, and she has to throw the cat out because she can't afford to feed it anymore, and the cat says, "That's okay." It's not speaking because cat. Says, "That's all right. I will leave. I'll leave you alone. It's going to be okay. What you need to do is create like a clay effigy of me, and luck will come back to you." So she did that, and she started selling them. It was really successful, really popular. She got the money in. She was able to live comfortably again after that. Another story is a man was like, there was a downpour, and he was waiting in like an alleyway, and he saw a cat who was just like, he's like, "Okay, that's a bit weird, I'll go and have a look at that." And as he moved, lightning strikes the place where he was before. So again, he's really grateful to this cat. He decides to create effigies in its honor, catches on, everyone's happy. Originally they were called Morishime Neko, and they looked a little bit different. So, like, I know the picture's real small, but if you can kind of see them here, so rather than being like that, they were more like that. I'm not sure when it changed. They say that different colours or which paw is up, that's associated with different things. So it's like, I think blue is supposed to be for good luck in your studies, gold obviously is for money. It says like one arm is to invite money in, one arm is to invite customers in. Say arm, paw, leg. It's kind of a bit like, don't really know where that came from, and it's suspected that that's very much a commercial thing, so that companies could sell lots of cats in different colours and you want to buy all of them. Cats in temples and shrines. There is a shrine associated with the Maneki Neko. There are a lot of Maneki Neko there. Yeah, this is said to be the one where the cat was originally enshrined by whoever it was that got lucky because of this cat. There's also the Nyan-Nyanji in Kyoto, which basically translates to Meow Meow Temple. It's not actually a temple. I know it's nice to think of it that way. It's not actually a temple. It's an art gallery, but what they do have is these cat monks. And when the cat monks, the actual cat monks, are kind of too busy or sleeping, they got the not quite cat monk. Like it's a pretty nice fursuit, I've got to say. Like it's nice and realistic. What Japan also has is cat islands. It has 3 cat islands. These are all islands that have really big cat populations. Generally, like the cats really super outnumber the humans that remain on the island. I think there are still humans on all of them, so someone is around looking after the cats. You can visit, I think definitely 2 of them, and I think all of them. And like you could go over there, buy some food for the cats, just go over and feed them. One of them specifically at Tashirojima in Miyagi Prefecture is historically known for silk production. So if you remember back when I said that the cats were all to be let loose to deal with this, it's thought that that's when the explosion, like cat population explosion, happened on Tashirojima, because all the cats were out and not kind of, trapped away in palaces anymore, and they could breed as much as they liked. There is also Aoshima in Ehime Prefecture and Ainoshima in Fukuoka Prefecture. It is late on Saturday night and I am losing my voice, sorry.
So is the room next door.
Cats with jobs. Sometimes people give cats job titles, and that's not unique to Japan either. There are cat mayors in America, there are cat librarians, like, people just like having cats around.
We have station cats in Britain now as well.
Yeah, we do, yeah. Like, they don't have official titles, but they belong to the station. Yeah, there's Felix and Bolt in Huddersfield, there was another one somewhere else.
Downing Street.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah, Larry the cat, Larry the official, he does have a government job title, he is the
Yeah.
official chief mouser. They had Palmerston at number 11 for a while, but he retired and went to live out in the country somewhere. The most famous one in Japan is Tama, who was the station master at Kishi Station. She lived to be 13 or 14 years old, and after her death she'd been so popular that they did enshrine her. She was succeeded by Nitama, which means two Tama. And Nitama, I love this, Nitama was brought to the shrine to pay her respects to Tama before she could take on the job. There was Son Tamatama, who was considered to be Tama's replacement, but the trainer at Nakaku Station was like, no, I like this cat too much. This cat is staying here in my prefecture. So, however, Son Tamatama still has a station master job, and it continues to be the station master at Nakaku Station. And there is Yontama, or 4-tama. Yontama is also the station master. Is also a station master. They're in Idakiso Station, so that's when Nitama was trained to be Tama's replacement. Now I'm going to be a little bit self-indulgent for a moment. This is a thing that happened to me, possibly the most me thing to ever happen to me. I was in Japan a few years ago, and we were traveling around in Tokyo, and we were going to Ikebukuro. Now that's an area that's known for a lot of different things. There are a bunch of cosplay shops there, like all of the kind of the boys love stuff, like is really focused around that area. There's several different cat cafes, we went to one of them. I was like, I want to see more cats. I'm going to look up in Japan where I can find, just cats in Tokyo that's not necessarily a cat cafe. And I found, East Ikebukuro Park. That's known for its cat population. I'll go and visit that. So we went there, we met these lovely cats, they were very sweet. There was a chap there who was feeding the cats, looking after them, making sure they were healthy. And then we left, and went back, and I was like, East Ikebukuro Park. East Ikebukuro. There's something about that. What is that? East Ikebukuro Park is right next to the Sunshine 60 building. The Sunshine 60 building and East Ikebukuro Park were built on the grounds of the, I think, Sungama prison, which was very famous for imprisoning war criminals and executing them there. Sunshine 60 is one of the most famous ghost spots in Tokyo, and I was there, and I was paying no attention to the ghosts because I was distracted by the cats.
I thought you said one of them was feeding the cats.
Yeah, maybe that was a ghost. What was he feeding them? Yeah, the text is a little bit small, so I will read it out for you as well. This is the full timeline of Kaibyo to Kaggle. So we start with terrifying monster cats, giant monster cats that want to eat you. Next, we have the shape-shifting monster cats, who are a little bit more subtle in the ways they want to eat you. Next, we get the Nekunusume girls and the Misemono girls, who've got cat-like features in some way. Shape-shifting monster cats turning up in Kabuki theatre. Kabuki theatre, and thereby the shape-shifting monster cats turning up in ukiyo-e prints. The first woman who's got cat-like features who appears in what we would traditionally call a manga these days is 1924. That's Kenji Miyazawa's Suisenzuki no Yoka. I don't have a picture of that one, unfortunately. The Kaidan Kai cinema became really popular just prior to World War II. So Kaidan Kai is like ghost stories, spooky stories. That was really, really popular at that point. I think beginning with a short film in around 1910. After World War II, people weren't really in the mood for that kind of thing in Japan so much, but they did become very popular again in the 1950s and 60s. In between that time, we have the revival of the Nekomusume in the Kamishibai theatre that I mentioned earlier. Now, the first cat girl in an anime is in Osama no Shippo, which translates to, well, is translated to The King's Tale by Mitsuyo Seo. So that's this black and white one here. You can see like the cat features are very clear, the human features are maybe not so much, but I think that's more to do with the technology at the time than them kind of not wanting her to look human. The cat girl then is further popularized in Yumiko Oshima's The Star of Cottonland in 1978, so that's the one who's licking up the milk there. And this continued and snowballed until we reached the 1990s, when cat girls were firmly entrenched in the world of anime and manga. Now, one of the stars of these Kaidankai with the kaibyo in them is Irie Takako. Like, she was a really significant figure for Bakaneko Nekomata law. She debuted as an actress in 1927, she formed her own film company in 1932, so she was pretty successful. And she did come from an aristocratic family as well, so it's a little unusual for her to have gone into acting in the first place. She appeared in a series of cat-themed Kaidan films. Most notably, in 1954, we've got Kaibyo Omagutsuchi and Kaibyo Okazaku Sodo. 1957, we have Kaibyo Goju-san Suji and Kaibyo Yonaki Numa. I'm not sure which one that is a poster for, but she was really, really famous for her portrayal of these demon cat monsters. She was really effective, like really, really creepy. And she was very, very popular as a result. Talking of monstrous cats, Junji Ito, who, if you don't know, is most famous for his really quite horrifying horror manga. But he also had cats, and he really loved them. So he released a comic called Yon and Mu as a serial in a magazine between 2007 and 2008, and it was later collected into a tankobon volume and released that. He was encouraged to do this because his editor was looking at his work and was like, you used to draw cats as like really horrible and creepy, but this latest cat that you've drawn in one of your comics is kind of cute. Have you got a cat now? Yeah, he got a cat. He got 2 cats, in fact. He got Yon, who he notes as being like just a horrible looking cat. And then there's Mu, who is a Norwegian forest cat, and he's like, this cat is the cutest thing in the whole world. But he loves them both. And what he does is he parodies his own horror work in this comic that is just about being a cat owner. But I mean, like, again, who hasn't looked at their cat and just gone, oh, you're so cute, I want to smush you to death? So, even though, like, some of the drawings are pretty horrible, it's actually like, you know what, no, that really is what it's like being a cat owner. You know, he really goes into kind of the nitty-gritty of owning cats. So one of them, he goes and gets his cat castrated, and he's, you know, feeling so guilty about it. Deals with, you know, dealing with the litter tray, things like that. If you are a cat lover and you don't mind some slightly freaky pictures, like, they really are good fun to read. Now I'm gonna finish up with some yokai that aren't generally associated with being cats, but I look at them and I'm like, that's a cat. Yanari. They're just a bunch of little weird guys. They run around the house late at night. They make strange squeaking noises. Well, that sure sounds like a cat. Kook again. Name means fluffy hair appearance. Also a pun on not seen very often. Tends to hang around crawling around floorboards. This is a cat that we fostered for a little while, and he started off just hiding under the bed the whole time. Then I got this amazing cryptid photo of him. And now whenever I see a Kook again, I'm like, oh, that's Walter, that is. Tenjo Kudari. It's a cat who lives in your ceiling, waits until it's night time, comes down, and licks you. That's a goddamn cat. Akaname is a filth licker who likes to lick up the gross stuff from your bathroom. My cat is a weird little guy. So mostly he just plays with the shower plug a bit, but every now and then he's like, human soup. And then we have the Ganbari Nudo. He's got a weird squeaky voice that's said to sound like a cuckoo. He's covered in black hair and likes to look at you when you're using the loo. That's a cat. Yeah. Right, that is all I've got for you today. If you would like to come up, write your name, just write 1 to whatever, write your name down. I'll do a random number generator on my phone and we'll see who wins. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed looking at many pictures of my cats.